The interesting thing was that both halls posted writers. One, a writer who wrote his own book, and another one, the one who didn't write his own book, Babangida. That was the. But what it tells you is that there's still a lot of work to be done. If the people who wish Nigeria well and good are fewer than the people who don't wish Nigeria well. That is the way I see it here. The second thing I want to say is that there was a mistake we must admit to that we made when democracy came about in 1999. In all fairness, we should have allowed charlatans to hijack the democratic process. We did, and we are guilty of where we are today. In the US, they refer to democracy as government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And Abdul's book title refers to democracy as demonstration of grace. But I have often referred to Nigeria's democracy as morontocracy, a democracy that was hijacked by morons. And that is the result you can get. The reason is that while the rest of you are no longer getting arrested, detained, or your passport seized as per Agbakoba, I still get arrested as of a few weeks ago. I have my passport seized by the government in power. That's Oshi-omo-ole's government, Comrade Oshi-omo-ole's government. They are still persecuting us because we did not put in place the kind of democracy that would have guaranteed our own fundamental rights and well-being. This is why we are different from South Africans. South Africans, when they ended apartheid, did not leave their country to the people who were running apartheid. The most important activists in South Africa are the political leaders. The most important billionaires in South Africa today are people who fought for democracy. But in Nigeria, the poorest people in Nigeria are people who fought for democracy. The least influential person in Nigeria are the people who fought for democracy. Even we can write as many books as we want, but for as long as we are not in charge of our destiny, as long as the right set of people don't govern this country, we can only be clapping at our book launch while they are laughing at us, because our numbers are way fewer. Our influence is not there. I've been introduced here as a presidential candidate. It is true that I ran for election twice in this country. Although I ran for election, I only saw on the day of election selection. And if we are not careful, which I'm sure you all know, by 2027, the day will pass and a set of people will have also selected themselves to be in power. And nothing will change in our lives. And I'll be able to say this because I know what we now have in terms of electoral politics. That whomever you see in INEC today are most likely APC card-carrying members. And for those of you who think that INEC is the biggest problem, you're making a mistake. The biggest people who rig election in Nigeria, who fix election are in the military, the security services. I was in the DSS when the election happened in 2019. They emptied the place. The only person that was left at the DSS was the guys who were guarding my cell and the guys at the gate. Every other person went to Kogi State to rig election for Yaya Bello. That is what will continue to happen in this country. On that basis, I just want to yield and thank you so much for the guidance you gave us. I can't thank Agbakoba enough. I can't thank Chief Jalefa enough, Femi Falana. And I wanted to say to Abdul, the writer of the book, you were a great journalist, a great executive director at CLO, but there was a time I had a fight with you, and it was because you were supporting Obasanjo's daughter. I can't forget that, but we'll reconcile. Next time, support my first time. Thank you very much.
So I think it's Agbakoba that writes the book. And then they were talking about their struggle, you know, as usual, regaling us with their struggle. We struggled for democracy. Unfortunately, those who also claim to have fought for democracy are now in charge of that contraption. We are going to get to that. Don't rush. Somebody is asking about ECPA and all of that. That's just like going to be like a flash. We're going to get to that part soon. Of course, what is Oshi-omo-ole's response? He also went on his own historic, like, you know, jargons and all that, because that's where I see it anyway. Then he went for Sowore himself, because Sowore called his name, right? Now let's go back there.
If I stop troubling people, then it is time to go back. I am taught early in life never to be intimidated, even by those who seem to have all the wisdom. I need to trouble them with my own lack of wisdom. You know, I ask myself, when we say democracy, 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 what is the meaning? It is not an ideology. Because even fascists want freedom to carry out their fascism. There are right-wing pro-democracy. There are center. So it is not a bundle of ideas. The only thing you share is that we do not want military dictatorship. But when civilians come, whether we should pursue right-wing economic policies or left-wing economic policies or policies of the center, we will define who gets what in a free society. And I'm sure it's clear to us that whether we were united by color to fight colonialism, when the black men take over, we discover that to be black is not to share the same bundle of ideas, which we call democracy. So I think even as we talk about all that we went through, democracy and all of that, it does not mean that we share the same ideology. There are people who wanted that freedom so that they can do what they have to do, and there are others who wanted it so that they can work for the poor. The intentions could be different. I'm not quoting any author, and I don't need to quote any author. This is what I have learned in the journey of life. I was not going to measure his name, but once you measure my name, I must measure your name. I heard Sowore now try to mislead us. He said he contested for presidency of Nigeria and that INEC is of no use. If INEC is of no use, why did you submit your forms to INEC? And this is the way, because in the course of talking, he also said we made a mistake in not contesting in 1999. It is this same cynicism, doubt, dismiss, sweeping generalization that misled those or some of those who struggle for democracy to say nothing good can come out of the military. They don't mean it. There will be no election. A rat cannot give birth to a rabbit. There were all kinds of stories. How can the military midwife real democracy? No, it's not possible. Because it's always better to dismiss everything, you get a ladder applause. Then the bad guys decided, since you guys who fight and you keep dismissing those who were in charge of the system you want to change, we will go in there. They went in and they captured power. And they changed the contour of power. They changed the rules of the game. And I can speak with authority why I say, when you dismiss in a very sweeping manner that the country is hopeless, the system is impossible, so we should begin to cry. I stand here to say that every leader, every one of us here, must do nothing to discourage people from believing that there is no future, because the past and the present is not as rousing as we want it to be. The fight of the imperfections, the fight of the gap between where we think we ought to be and where we are should be enough incentive for us not to give up on ourselves. And that is what took me to Edo State. And I need you to listen to this. When Sowore said Agbakoba should have been president if he had his way, the first thing that I said to myself is, given the level of his courage, why did he say so that time? And then mobilize people and put Agbakoba in front. There is no need to say something when it is no longer useful. It has expired. If you had done that, and there's some other person's support, Oshi-omo-ole, you are the most courageous woman I have met. We were not C101, but I read through bourgeois most courage to say things that only people who are not afraid of dying could say when you were president of the CLO. I never visited your house, you never visited my house, but we meet in the marketplace of ideas, and I saw that, no, for you, if anybody can say anything, you can say it even clearer. And the advantage you have, your face was very, very misleading. Because women who are good looking hardly like trouble. They hardly like trouble. Like me, it's predictable why I like trouble, because even looking at me, I can't look better than I am. However, I tried. I could do makeup, I could do surgery. This man will not grow taller. This man will not expand. And my face can be frightening, as Demitola will tell you. So, but you, Ayo, you inspire many women, and I had used you without your consent to explain to women who want a society, equality, women representation, but those who benefit from another cannot be trusted to give up on that other. It is those who are victims of the other who must rise to fight for the change. How can you change what benefits you?
That was, that's exactly what I wanted you to hear. I mean, he's very honest at the tail end of his own rant. Those who benefit from an order, they will never want to give it up. It is the victims of that order that will rise and challenge it or possibly break it. He's right. Well, you know, to them, they don't really believe that these Nigerians have it in them. Rise and fight us. They don't believe that. Some of them do say that a day is coming, you know, that the people will come for them, right? But they don't really believe that. In my own opinion, no, they don't really believe that. Because I remember, when was this statement credited to Oshi-omo-ole when he said that during the End Bad Governance protest, when Oshi-omo-ole said, those who are protesting better not come to his house, that he's been hearing that the protesters should go to the politicians' houses. And Oshi-omo-ole sent a warning that he won't hesitate to fire anybody that approaches his gate, because to them, they are protected. So how are you going to do it? They can fantasize it too. I'm not sure if all of them does, but I bet they probably do fantasize it. Like, imagine if Nigerians start coming for us now. What are you going to do? My private jet is, I don't know, like they probably should be fantasizing it. Or they are living in a different world entirely than the world you and I live in. Like Kolu, talking about climate change.
We are a poor nation. The ban coal will follow. They say firewood, not smoke. They say we need to plant more trees. And they are not giving us money. We need to open our eyes, shine it, and tell the West, if you don't guarantee our finances and work with us to stop this, we are not going to comply with your climate change. They'll do it. We are a...
That's a call. Right. So, brethren, this is the point where somehow emotion and temper may begin to rise. Hopefully not. 7 months ago, the Finnish authority arrested Simon Ekpa in Finland. And this was almost on the eve of their second declaration of Biafra government in exile. You know, an exercise to show that, you know, they are ready to go home. Meanwhile, prior to that, the IPOB, which is the known, I think they described them as a secessionist group, whereby the word, this IPOB, indigenous people of Biafra, led by Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, right? They have been having this, what do you call it, this clash, so to say, with Simon Ekpa's ideology of how the Biafran struggle should be fought. You may say clash of ideas. However, this created a serious fracture within the supposed, the once upon a time so organized group. It was actually a challenge for the IPOB leadership at the time. They were blackmailed, blacklisted, gaslighted, called names and all that. Nnamdi Kanu's wife was not spared. And the genesis of all of that is because the Malamu, Bokwari's government, as well as Malamu's office, organized the international kidnapping scheme in order to kidnap Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. So Simon Ekpa, who now joined the fray around that time to create what he believed would be the leadership for the movement, jumped in to tell everybody who cares to listen, who cared at the time, that he knew those who sold Nnamdi Kanu and he was going to release their names. On this, like I said, it created a further fracture, its trust, that really posed a serious challenge to the IPOB as an organization at the time. As Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is being tortured, right, by the DSS outside, others who have become so weary of the whole struggle to some extent found the re-energized EPA as a probably, an alternative that if Nigeria think picking up Nnamdi Kanu would demoralize the struggle. So, like I said, it was more or less like a turning point time in the struggle. So let's now fast forward, right, to when everybody seems to have sort of found their place, from autopilot to Birgi. Birgi means Biafra government in exile, which Simon Ekpa, right, became their prime minister. And as the prime minister of Biafra government in exile, he sees it as his responsibility to defend the Biafra, right, in the absence of the main leader. In that breath, he raised funds, and in what his supporters believed to be, a defense kind of like mechanism to protect the people from the marauding Fulani terrorists. While those who didn't buy into his ideology or his idea continue to call him names too, like I said, a fractured movement at that point. Others said that he was never their member. Like back and forth trade of blame, abuses, and the rest of that, finally established Simon as a force enough to face the contraption and their agent, as he put it. But unfortunately, that backfired. How? You see, before Simon Ekpa ventured into the issue of a Biafran struggle, the Biafrans have been having what they called sit at home. And it's always been so peaceful, whereby,